I kind of think that heaven's this place where it's like you get in if you figure out how to be a part of that community.
Say that again.
Heaven might be this place where it's like you get into heaven if you can figure out how to be a part of that good community. Like if you don't fit in, you won't go. You won't go to heaven.
You have a lot of interesting ideas as to what heaven is. Why do you think it's a real place?
Because I guess it's just like, what's the evidence for heaven? Blah. Why do you think it's a real place? It's like, listen, like, at the end of the day, there's zero evidence for anything out there. There's zero evidence. It's just like, the Big Bang happened. What happened before that? No one knows. We literally, like, the Big Bang originally, I always bring it up, but, like, the Big Bang, the equations for it were solved by a Catholic priest. Originally, a lot of people saw it as a very good thing for Christianity because it proved that there was a beginning. And the reason it has the name Big Bang is because an atheist was making fun of it on a radio station. He's like, "Oh, this Christian, I wish I could remember his name, but it's very Italian sounding."
The Catholic priest?
Yeah, the Catholic priest.
It's Lemaitre.
Lemaitre? Yeah, you're right.
George.
Yeah, it's like, I'm like, yeah, I believe in the Big Bang because you want to know what, like, just think about it. What is it saying? It's just saying that, like, oh, and by the way, what caused this? There's no evidence on Earth. There's no, our scientific understanding for how we could have come to be prior to the Big Bang, people give you theories. But as far as evidence for these theories, it's just like, there's really nothing that explains it. So to me, it's just like, okay, however we got here, it must be from like a different plane, a different something. You know, it's not.
You don't buy into the idea of the rebirth universe or just continuing rebirth?
No, because where's the evidence for it? You know,
there's evidence that the Earth contracts, or will contract once it's expanded.
I don't know, man. No, I don't buy into that. I would have to really understand the science.
There's some evidence for it.
Okay, but some evidence is not the same as like, you know, you can.
No, absolutely not. I'm with you. I'm not saying no, but I'm just saying that is one theory that like.
Okay, well here's the other thing though, is I'm like when it comes right down to it, so there's not enough evidence for me to be an atheist. There just isn't, and it's like when it comes down to it, I do feel like there's evidence for Christianity. To me, I really do feel like there's a lot of evidence for it.
What specifically?
Well, okay, so why am I believe that God exists, and I know it's like Pascal's wager is like you should be a Christian because if you're wrong, nothing happens. If you're right, you go to heaven. But if you're an atheist, if you're wrong, you go to hell, and if you're right, nothing happens. It's like the problem with Pascal's wager as well. There's multiple religions, genius. And so it's like, why am I a Christian? It's like, why do I like Jesus Christ? My answer is always like, well, can't I just like the guy? Like, I do just genuinely, having read the Bible, understanding the religion, Jesus seems like a figure a lot different to me than any other figure in religion. One of the main things I think that makes Jesus such an interesting character is he didn't write about himself. You know, he didn't put any of this paper. Like, think about Joseph Smith. You know, I'm not knocking Mormons, but I just disagree with them. Joseph Smith. He's this guy providing this text. I do happen to not be an Islam, even though Muslim, sorry, even though I do think the religion is very similar to Christianity. But, like, I don't like the fact that Muhammad provided basically all of the Quran. Whereas, I'm not really a fan of that. And with Christianity, what I like is Jesus didn't write anything. It was all people writing about him. He was like, if I'm going to leave an impact on this earth, it's just going to be how I treat people. It's just going to be my message that I tell people when I speak to them. Mm-hmm. And it's like he just wanted to set a ripple into the world. And so I kind of believe that...
was a cute little stretch.
Yeah, I was. He's such an adorable dog. But yeah, I believe that ripple is like, that's what Christianity is this guy came here to kind of change things, and, you know, and some people listen to him and some people don't.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
But think about it, like, from my perspective,
mm-hmm.
Okay? That's a good point, that he didn't write any of his own stuff.
Yeah, it's not evidence.
He just hired people to.
Mm,
There are human ways around that, right?
the more people, here's the thing, is that cults aren't led by groups of people. Cults are led by one person, and that's because a secret, you can't keep a secret between three people, two people even. You know, it's like the more people you involve, if he involved that many people in this lie, this message that he sent would be completely tainted. You know, and it to me it doesn't feel tainted.
Okay, but I get that. But I'm not saying these other.
This is an unbelievable amount of cheese on my fingers right now. I've been going crazy at these things.
I'm not saying that the apostles were in on the secret, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were just wholly convinced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they were totally convinced too. But like,
So what's the difference between that and a cult, though, as far as the start goes? Like, he didn't have to write any of that stuff because he knew he could convince his apostles.
there's a lot.
I'm just listen. I'm
There's
just
a lot
playing
of
devil's
things.
advocate here.
There's a lot of things. So actually, a documentary about cults. At a certain point, the U.S. government, I think it was the U.S. government, realized they're like, oh, cults are actually a problem. Like, it's not a joke. Like, cults are bad. It kills people. It's just dangerous for societies. And so they hired people like, you need to figure out what a cult is. Like, how do we know when is a group a cult? And so they wrote down a list. I think I can find. Yeah, I have it in my notebook here.
So you're telling me cults are illegal?
Oh, for sure. People who get caught starting cults, like they go to jail. Because it's
So how do they get around the First Amendment?
what?
How do they get around the First Amendment?
Let me read this. I don't know. So it's like this is like the recipe for a cult. It's like one, people who are in it, like because they were trying to say not only do we want to know what a cult is, but we want to understand how it starts, like the nature of these things. That people who join it are at a crossroads. I'll even admit that's similar to religion a lot of times. But people are at a crossroads. People who join a cult.
What do you mean?
That just like you're at a big juncture in life, and so you're looking for something, and here's this thing offering solutions.
Okay.
You know, the soft sell is that's what a lot of cults have in common. It's like at first it does like cults genuinely feel very normal when you join them originally. They don't feel like, and then you get bought in, and then the third thing is a lot of them promise a new reality, basically. Like the thing they're promising is just like everything's going to change. You're going to live in a completely different reality. The thing is the dear leader, which is like every cult has that in common. Like this is, I keep saying this, every cult has it in common. But basically, there's someone at the top and they're sacred. They're completely sacred. The enemy, they put someone, peer pressure is a big one of it. And then, like the thing is, at the end of the day, it's a sociopathic narcissist.
Who's running it?
Yeah. Cults are run by sociopathic narcissists. Jesus wasn't a sociopathic narcissist. It's like he talked because what he was saying is important, but it's like he washed feet. He always, he put others first. He like defended prostitutes. Like he literally just, he 100% his message.
You could be so good though.
He demonstrated his message.
Mm-hmm.
He put it in front of you. Whereas in like a lot of people, another thing they found is that a lot of cults, people leave. Like that's actually on average people leave cults, and a lot of the reason is because they see their cult leader messing up. They see their cult leader for a little bit who they are. Like one of them in the documentary was just like, we weren't allowed to like partake with, multiple women, and he was just having at it. Like, and he's like, so I caught on. It was a sham, but like Jesus, he just practiced what he preached for sure.
As far as we know.
Yeah, as far as everything that's been written about him,
yeah.
He didn't brag about it. You know.
Yeah. Well, okay. Again, those are good points, but also it's like, imagine a sociopathic narcissist who's just the Einstein of that. Just an Einstein, and he just realized, oh, even in the future, I could get people to believe this because of those things.
In that case, I would say
he just happened to be an Einstein, and that's why.
In that case, I would say, I look at the effect Christianity has had on the world in general, and while you can knock it for some things, I think Christ's ripple, what he did to the world, and the title Christianity they're not always in line, Like the title Christianity, stuff is done in its name all the time that doesn't truly reflect Christ. But, there's power to the name. People want to abuse that name. And so, but speaking of sort of what he really did to the world, when I look at what I believe his message was, I've read his message. I think he was a solid person with solid ideas, and I like his way of thinking. Um, his message only affects my life and the lives of people I know in a positive way. So he's like, let's say he was a complete narcissistic liar. I'm like, well, all right, then props to you for kind of making my life better by accident in your evil sort of way. I don't know what he gained from it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no clue what he gained from it. Like, he got killed and he just accepted that it was going to happen.
Well, what if it was less of? What if it wasn't to gain? What if he just was somebody?
I don't think he was doing it to gain. That's the thing.
No, yeah, but he could be making everything up,
Mm.
and still and without anything to gain, because in his mind, the legacy would be worth it.
Yeah. So my answer to that was I don't think a human could achieve that.
That's a fair answer.
Yeah, it's way too emotionally intelligent. Like, and that's the thing. Back then, I'm talking. I've been talking about how we advance ethically. Back then, it was even worse than it is now. For someone like him to, because his lessons do transcend time. They really do. That's what's interesting about them, and that's why understanding the metaphor of the time is important. It does. You do lose stuff in language. It's tough, and that's why I think the whole don't add to the Bible. I think read modern theologians. There's nothing wrong with it. Treat it like, don't treat it like the Bible, but treat it like like your growing faith.
What about all the inconsistencies though?
In the Bible?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, to me,
not that I can list them off or anything, but they exist.
Oh, 100% they exist, and that's because how we say it's a spectrum all the time. Is because literally it's like, let's say if my kids, and people might even disagree with this decision, but like my kid, one kid says, he hit me. To the kid who says, he hit me, I'd be like, why did he hit you? And if I get down to the root of it and it's because you were in his room and he asked you to leave and you didn't, then I'm going to say like, all right, I'm sorry, but you did bring this on yourself. Like, understand a little bit. And then I would go to the other sibling and I'd be like, don't hit your brother. Like, are you, like, this isn't how our, the message I would give to each of those people would be very, very different. The same thing happened, but depending on where you are, you need to hear something different. So it's like a lot of the times the Bible just completely contradicts itself because maybe that lesson isn't meant for you. Maybe it will be meant for you in the future, but a lot of stuff is, it's like, for instance, one of my favorite things of the Bible is don't answer a fool to their folly, which is basically, if you're talking to someone who is stubborn and there's nothing to gain from the conversation, it's actually wrong for you to keep engaging. Now, you could take that and you could say, like, I don't want to engage with people at all. And I'm sure there's a Bible verse that contradicts that way of thinking. It's just like, there's obviously going to be contradictions in the Bible because when you're describing morality, which is at the end of it, fluid, complex, and just, goodness is not something that you can put into law or words. There's going to be a million ways to go at it. So, Christ responded to people's questions in ways that, made sense to the way they asked the question and probably the state that they were in when they made the question.
Yeah, no, that's also a good answer. But again, I mean, the main issue is this: I have another question that contradicts that, and you could give that another answer. But I'm always going to have another question. And there's just nothing that you can do that will prove it definitively. That's
where faith comes in.
Right. And that's my problem.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Because as soon as you say, because it always comes back to faith. This is something you hear in Catholicism a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I don't really know about other branches of Christianity, but I'm sure that as well, is they say ultimately it's about faith. And to me, it's like, that's just air. That's just emptiness.
Okay, can I try to explain it?
That it literally doesn't mean anything.
Can I try to explain it?
Sure.
Okay. So that's why I think that people who switch to Christianity all of a sudden in a moment of, and it's like, I was saved from this moment. I'm like, I think a problem with the church is we treat conversion like too big of a deal. The moment you become a Christian, it's like, it's a lifestyle, it's growing. There's not a moment you become a Christian. The whole Bible is about not being lukewarm. It's about stepping forward. And Christianity is forward momentum. That's what Christianity is. And so basically what it says is at a certain point, you will be it's like, you get to a point where you've learned, you've read, you've been in communities, and you go, I'm convinced this is good. Cults try to get you in quickly. They try to get you in quickly. It's like, no, I think for me, Christianity was I just had to spend a while with it. I had to get to know what the message was. I had to get to know the people involved, and then at a certain point, you just go, I'm bought in. I could keep asking more questions, but sometimes I'll say, like, people will say something to me. They'll be like, what's your opinion on this? And I'll go, you want to know what? I remember reading something, and I don't remember what it said, but I remember how it made me feel. Like, this is my opinion on it. Like, and so with Christianity, it's like you ask a question, and it's like, honestly, I remember the way that this belief makes me feel. So the questions that don't have answers, a lot of the time, it's not like it's mutually exclusive. It's not like, if you can't answer this, then you can't trust this. It's like, that's not a... Right. It's not a mutually exclusive thing.
That's not my problem with
so
it, though.
Faith is just the gap where you've said, I've bought into this being a good thing. It's like, how could it not benefit me to be a part of this? How could it not benefit me? Like, I've concluded that this is beneficial to my life because at the end of the day, people do kind of need structure. We're going to do better if we have...
You're coming at it from
and structure is
a pragmatic point of view. You're saying that, okay, my faith comes from the fact that I think it's a good thing. I agree with the morals.
Yeah.
And I think it would ultimately result in a better society.
And the plus side is, here, not to go back to Pascal's wager, but the plus side is immense.
Right.
Because not only the things that it promises me in heaven, but also the thing it promises me on earth.
What do you mean on earth?
If you follow, it's not like Bible is always giving. It's like work is definitely a thing, but reward is also a thing in the Bible. And reward comes not in the way you thought it was. It doesn't come in the way that, it doesn't come in money. It doesn't come in, reward just comes in, the form of fulfillment, appreciating the people around you. It's like, I'm pretty fixed in the church. I like my friends. I like my family. I like, I kind of just choose to...
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy as much as I possibly can, and I think that Christianity, this filter that I've put myself in, has helped me to do that.
Okay, so that's all well and good, and so basically you're saying that faith it's just the decision, is that you've put the pros and cons table list.
Now here's the thing:
and you've made
can the decision ever be from that point ever be called into question? It's like, no, because the very decision itself is to call things into question. Like, Christianity itself is, keeping yourself, making sure. That's the thing. Christianity is not an idea.
I don't know if I buy into that, though, because of the repetition of faith. When you say faith again, it's saying, don't call it into question, have faith. And that's really what got me suspicious early on, was saying... If you have to say faith to cover up something, it just means you don't have an answer. And not only that, it means that I could apply that faith towards anything, and it would answer all the same questions.
I think then I would say, people who are new to the faith, don't expect them to have faith.
How does that answer my question,
though? I don't think they were treating you well. I don't think they were handling your budding religion in a good way. I don't think they were, because they're humans, Of course they're going to make mistakes, but I wouldn't, the way I'll raise my kids is not like, well, kids, it's faith. Like it's just kind of, you just got to have faith. I would maybe use that word, but I would also 100% try to demonstrate throughout my life what I feel I've learned Christianity to be, so that there's more than just the word faith. You're right. Faith as a word by itself is not.
I wasn't indoctrinated slow enough.
Indoctrinated implies that it was something they were trying to do to you with bad intentions.
It has a negative connotation.
Well, no, I don't think it's indoctrination. I think, like, by definition, is they're trying to get you into something bad. They want something not good for you. And so I'm saying, I think they were just clumsy, But, and that's okay. Here's the thing. At the end of the day,
no. It just
were you ruined by it?
To accept a set of beliefs uncritically.
So uncritically, that's a bad thing. I don't think Christianity wants you to accept it uncritically.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
And how come that's the 99.9% of the religion?
I don't think it is.
Really?
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I'm just a part of the church, and I'm just like, you see that sometimes. And here's the thing: sometimes it's just like, a lot of the time, my church doesn't really treat whether or not you believe as a variable. It's just like if you're attending and your life isn't going well and you're becoming a part of our community, then we just treat you well and we want to take care of you. You know? If you're in attendance with the church, how solid your faith is shouldn't affect the way you treat people, you know? So it's just like, oh, just as long as you're part of our community, then we will. I'm repeating myself at this point.
No, I get that.
So it's like some people
but
don't really need to have strong faith.
But you can see that in some ways that this...
Because we'll still take care of them.
Extending the conversation has only proved my original point that I can just keep asking questions, even about the definition of faith.
Yeah, I mean,
can't answer.
We've met.
So
I kind of believe mine serves as more of a roadblock than yours, and you believe yours serves as more of a roadblock than mine.
Yours is...
Like, I think that my answer was sufficient.
Well,
I think you're just stacking one more answer on top of it.
It's because it's sufficient for you.
No, because we've stopped talking about faith. We're not talking about faith anymore.
No, we are.
How so?
You're talking about how ultimately it was a decision for you to make based on morals in the community, and that you think it would be better for you. My point, it comes back to it, is that was a decision that you made that can be made for a completely different thing too, and it no longer is this ethereal thing that's going to result in like a heaven, for example, which you're talking about. It's an earthly decision. You know what I mean? So it's like you're making that based off of your earthly variables. How does that even relate to God?
Emotional intelligence.
What do you mean?
You know, I always say, I studied, was I into neuroscience? Like, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with neuroscience.
Yeah, you're big into it.
Yeah, really, I wanted to be a neuroscientist. And people are always like, we know everything about the brain. It's like brain, it's just chemicals. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, but I understand the brain pretty well. Not as smart as most doctors, I'll give you. But I'm just like, no, we don't understand the brain. Like, we don't understand the brain. It's our understanding of it is very limited. It's a very complex thing. And it's why, medicines and it's just brain surgery. It's just we're just practicing, really. And so it's like, to assume that the brain is all there is at all is just, maybe this thing...
Well, on the other hand, that's a little self-defeating because you're just talking about how complex and crazy the brain is. Maybe that's enough.
I think it's the belief that maybe this thing that is this level of self-awareness that we're experiencing, maybe that's what a soul is.
Maybe it's just hidden in the complexity of the brain.
Yeah, maybe.
You get what I'm saying, though? How your point kind of doesn't argue for you.
No. Okay, no. This is the problem, though. You keep bringing it back to a logical argument. I'm bringing it to an emotional argument, which I don't think is going to work as well on you personally. But I think
I haven't heard what the emotional argument is.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, how do I teach it? I'm just like, I don't know, dude. Like, I feel it. It's just like what
you were talking.
You don't have to be able to describe it.
No, but you went in the direction of talking about brain chemistry.
Yeah. And I'm saying because
you didn't even reference emotional intelligence yet.
No. What I'm saying is, people say we understand the brain. All I'm saying is, no, we don't. If we did have souls, if we had souls, our current understanding of the brain couldn't prove that or disprove that. Or it's like, we're not there yet. We don't know if souls are just science hasn't gotten there.
But you want to get
not even close.
You're moving around a lot.
And so I'm saying that so
I agree with that.
Yes.
I do. Yeah.
That's not a good argument for why we don't have souls or why it isn't real.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just like, no, the emotional argument is just like, man, do you feel his presence? It's like...
The emotional argument is, man, doesn't it feel like we have a soul? Wait, let's get out.
It's just, wow, I am going to be on this earth stuck with this immense sense of wonder for the rest of my life. This is it's insane that I have this opportunity to be here. Like, even if it was all science, it's like, man, I'm real grateful where science sent me, but I just don't, this life I'm experiencing doesn't feel like science to me. It doesn't feel like nature. It doesn't feel like something that could happen randomly. It feels like it was meant to be, Well, that emotional argument is just kind of when you sink into that feeling. And again, the way I can argue to you is I'm like, and maybe you're right. maybe you're right that it's not real, but at the end of the day, it's causing me to live my best life on Earth. So why would you try to tear it down?
No, that's and you know that's the answer that I can accept as for reason why you believe. It's not something that's going to convince me to do it though.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah,
because for me, I believe that there are potentially other ways to do that same thing and potentially better ways to do that same thing.
Yeah.
All right, buddy, come on.
I mean, here's the thing.
Let's get up. You're getting all fidgety.
Can I rebuttal that?
Yeah, of course.
And this is like an unpopular Christian belief, but I believe that you can make it to heaven and not necessarily call yourself a Christian. I think that there's probably people out there who have figured out kind of like they've kind of passed the vibe check with God, where it's just like at some point you become intelligent enough to kind of figure out what you think, not figure things out, but just make the decision to start moving forward. You know,
is that where my little is that where my stance on self improvement?
Yeah, because here's the thing: is I look at you and I'm like, oh, he's just making good decisions. These decisions are going to affect himself positively and other people positively. So it's like, why would I get in the way of that? So that's where I'm always like, I'm not trying to change your mind.
But isn't that
because you're not doing anything wrong?
No. I totally get that, and I'm not trying to have you change my mind or anything. I'm just in this conversation.
Yeah, it's
but
fun.
Isn't that the idea of you opening up this boundary and saying, well, you no longer need to be a Christian to get to what I think heaven is? Isn't that a little bit of just like, how do I explain it? Isn't that changing the religion to fit what you think it should fit?
No.
That makes sense.
This is how I think. I think the
like that's not what the Bible.
The idea of the religion
fitting
no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
My point. Religion doesn't.
You're tacking things on, right?
Religion fitting into something is just. Well, there you go. Religion doesn't fit into anything. You know, Christ didn't fit in. It's like it's.
You're saying it's not a definitive thing.
No, but, that's what I'm saying is.
But the Bible
if you keep thinking I need.
Example.
No, it isn't.
It's not.
When does it present itself as a definitive example? Like as a whole.
I mean,
least.
Well, one example would be the Ten Commandments. I know that's the Jewish Bible, but it does say that like these are the laws. And there are positive laws, meaning, or sorry, there are negative laws, meaning you are not allowed to do this, but everything else you can.
Yeah, no, you might have got me there. Okay, so what was the original question? Let me make sure I'm coming at this.
Fuck, this is the hard part about this type of conversation.
Yeah, no, you're right. But it's...
Oh, it was that my whole thing about self-improvement.
You're saying
you're just... Because you want it to.
Oh, and right? it's that idea is nowhere to be found in the Bible. Yeah. And so I kind of disagree with that. That's why Romans 12 is a really interesting verse to me, because it's kind of like the way we're having this conversation, no one at that time would have it under this context. No one would have the language we have to describe things the way we're describing them. And so I look at this is kind of how I feel they would have this conversation using their language. And Romans 12 is all about that. It's like men who have the word versus men who don't have the word. And then it's like they use castration a lot, like people who are castrated versus... And ultimately, like, what they're trying to say is, like...
Or circumcised?
Being circumcised, sorry. Oh, not castrated.
Very big difference.
Yeah, big difference. But they talked about people who were...
I love how Mrs. Henkel described circumcision.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, I love... She had this one story. Sorry, I'll let you finish your thought. It'd be too long to explain. But it is...
Okay, but I want to get to it. Yeah. They did talk about... Basically, the whole book is him saying, listen... Yeah, being circumcised is a good thing, but if you're not circumcised, like, no, you're not allowed into heaven. Like, it's just, it probably what it boiled down to was it was for the time, it was healthy, you know? It's probably...
Well, circumcision is healthy.
Yeah, I don't want to open up that can of worms, because people are getting heated about that, and I just don't know a lot about it.
No, I agree a lot with the idea that the Bible was just healthy tips for a healthy lifestyle, sort of like a farmer's almanac. Like, don't eat pork because pork is likely to give you parasites if you don't cook it enough.
Yeah, that's what the Old Testament was. It was just really, really solid advice.
I totally get
for the culture that you lived in. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah,
but
obviously.
We don't live in that culture.
And if you try to understand the rules under the context of the culture, they all make sense. They're all good rules.
But we don't live in that culture.
No, because some of the rules come off really weird. look, come off like that seems just wrong. But the reason I can tell you is it's just good advice is because, like, no, not just how they ask you to handle ethical things, but look into the Bible about how you're supposed to handle, like, physical things. They're like, okay, if someone gets a cyst, remove them from this area, do this, like, oh, this is how you should treat a boil. Like, the law, it was obviously just tips at the end of the day. The problem was people turned those tips into government, and that's sort of what Jesus kind of came to try to break apart,
Yeah.
Because he was like, bro, you are not supposed to, like, that's why he defied the government, like, he didn't honor the Sabbath, which is, like, a crazy one to break.
Mm-hmm.
He's radical. He's certainly radical, but radical doesn't always mean exclusively bad.
So can I tell you my argument for why I believe there is a God?
Yeah, sure.
But I don't necessarily think it's the Christian one. Well, the Christian one we've already established, but the reason I think that there is a God
100% truth.
is actually fairly similar to yours.
Okay.
It's that, and I think the reason that I let myself get away with it is because there's just less baggage.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like I don't have to answer all these questions.
Yeah.
About why the Bible.
You don't know.
says
You don't. Well, you don't need to answer them yet.
But the main reason is that,
or ever,
is that
move forward.
It's literally just that I want to believe there's a world that it's more interesting, that if there is a God, and I could totally buy, like, okay, we're slowly starting to understand physics and quantum physics better, specifically quantum physics, and we might get to a point where we can explain every single phenomenon. It's possible. We're pretty far from that, but we could get there. We're not going to get there in my lifetime. So in the meantime, it's really, really fun to just think that you can still have a God inside of all this physics and quantum physics because we don't know enough. Kind of like the brain complexity thing. It can be hidden inside there. We can't say for sure it's not. I think that is more interesting than the alternative. I also think that the whole Big Bang thing, where, like, it started from something, I totally understand the idea of there's just planes of comprehension. It's like there just are, and we can comprehend that there are planes of comprehension, but we can't get past that, and you're just gonna have to accept that.
Well, I mean, the experience you hang on Earth, like, like, we have a different plane of comprehension than a bee.
Right. Totally different level.
And it's like, honestly, when it comes to that Big Bang, whatever's going on before that, I think the gap between us and B, it's even bigger than that.
It is way bigger.
Way bigger.
It's closer to, like, rock and human.
Yeah.
Like bacteria. Not rock, bacteria.
Or, let's be real, bacteria to orca. Orcas are smarter than people.
I don't believe that.
No, they're not. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
I think people extrapolate a lot.
That dolphins and orcas are aware of humans and, like, oh yeah, they got technology and shit. We got to be friends with them.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I just watched a documentary on this. I've been saying that so much lately. I love documentaries. But Animal Intelligence, we should totally watch it tonight. It's really interesting. They explain it.
I really, really need to brush my teeth.
Let's do that. All right, we should turn this off.
Yeah.
And then we watch an episode of this. It's only 20 minutes. For a documentary.
That's pretty cool.
It's great. All right.